too. Nice to have you here.
Fine. And yeah, thanks for having me.
So
Yeah.
this is going to be our first time doing an interview that is related to the stories of women and their career experiences in cloud native. So I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before we begin, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Sure. My name is Edidiong Asikpo. I oftentimes go by Didi because Edidiong can be hard to pronounce for people who are not from Akwa Ibom, which is the state I come from. I currently work as a senior developer advocate at Ambassador Labs, which is a cloud native Kubernetes focused company. I love writing technical articles. I love building and also um, helping developer communities grow. And then when I'm not doing anything tech related, I love to travel and watch a ton of movies. Like I think I'm obsessed with watching movies. Yeah, that's short
Yeah,
version
that's
of
so
me.
interesting to know. I know for the travel part, I know I've seen you post a whole lot of your travel below pictures
Yeah.
on Twitter, yeah, so I can attest to that. So Gideon, I would love to know, how did you get into tech? I know you've shared your stories how you got into tech, but for us, how did you get into tech, like generally tech?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I studied computer science, right? And when you like, if you're schooling in like any Nigerian university as a science student, you have to go for an internship in your third year. So I went for this internship in my third year, and I did it at this company called Stats Innovation Hub, where I learned how to do like build Android applications and was also exposed to the Google Developer Groups community. And like for me, even though I studied computer science, I think what really made my decision strong to actually pursue a career in tech was that internship, because it gave me an opportunity to see that I could actually build stuff. I feel like when I was in school, we really didn't do like a lot of practicals like that, and even when we did them, it was really hard to understand. But then at this internship, I could actually build an Android application, run it on my phone, and see it's working. And at the time, I used to be very obsessed with Facebook, like Facebook the application. So the fact that I could build an application and run it on my phone, it just made me feel like, okay, if I keep doing this thing, someday I'll be able to build Facebook or something. So I just started to continue that part of like learning Android development and also seeing people who were just as young as I was, or like maybe slightly older, doing amazing stuff in tech at the time was just really inspiring for me, because I was like, hey, if these people can do it as well, I can also do it too. And I feel like after I got back from that internship and went to school, a lot of things began to make more sense. Like things that I didn't understand before the internship was all like, okay, hey, I see what this lecturer is trying to say. I see what this the person is trying to teach me on. So I always tie like, why did I get into tech is because of that internship. Of course, I know that the internship wouldn't have happened if I didn't study computer science, right? So you can still tie it back to studying computer science. But doing the internship at Stats Innovation Hub was the thing for me. It gave me that view to see that, oh, I could actually be able to like build something and be good at it. It gave me a community. I could see people teaching others, sharing their knowledge, and it just like cemented my love for tech and made me realize that I could actually have or be able to build a career in this someday.
Wow, that's really interesting. You know, when you mentioned Stats Innovation Hub, I that is the same place I also had a base where I also got introduced into tech as
Oh, that's
well.
nice. That's
So
fantastic.
that's nice to that's nice to
Yeah,
hear.
that person hub is amazing, to be honest.
It's an amazing community, really.
Yeah.
So that being said, I would like to ask, you introduce yourself as a developer, senior developer, um,
Advocates, yeah.
advocate at Ambassador Labs. Now, I'd like to know, how did you land your current role as a developer advocate?
At Ambassador Labs.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. So I used prior to Ambassador, I used to work at Hashnode, which is like a company centered around helping developers to get into technical writing. So I mean, at first, like I got like a LinkedIn message from like the HR from Ambassador Labs, and when I looked at the company, I was like, oh, this company is like cloud native and Kubernetes. I don't really know a lot about it. So I mean, I didn't respond to the LinkedIn message. Like I just felt like it was a bit out of place when I looked at the company in terms of like where I was, because I was more focused in web development. So a couple months later, so let's assume I saw this LinkedIn message like in November or December the previous year. So sometime in like, let's say April or March, I can't really remember. I now got like an email from the director of DevRel from the same company, saying that hey, they wanted to like build a DevRel team and then they'll love me to come on board. And then it just felt like, okay, is the universe telling me something here? Like, okay, they reached out a couple of months back and they're reaching out again. And like, is the universe saying something? And then like for context, right? When I used to work at InterSwitch as a software engineer, I usually sat down close to someone named Abdul. He was like a DevOps person for our team. And because we sat down close to each other, whenever something went down, like let's say for instance quick teller wasn't working or any of the products wasn't working, everybody would always be like, Abdul, this thing is not working, Abdul, this thing is not working. And then you would see him now be saying stuff like, okay, hey, I'm trying to go to Kubernetes, I'm logging into Kibana, I'm like doing stuff. And then you'd look at his terminal, right? You see him running lots of commands and several things happening. So that always felt really fascinating to me. And I was like, okay, maybe someday in like the future or some like in another life or whatever, I will go into like learning this whole Kubernetes thing because it really looks fascinating. Like going to your terminal, typing some commands, seeing things running. Like it felt like all these FBI movies that I watch pretty much. And then so when this email came again the second time, I was like, maybe this is the universe saying it's finally time for me to like go into that thing that I thought was fascinating at some point. So I told them that, oh hey, I mean I do have the DevRel skills, but I don't really know a lot about like Kubernetes and like cloud native. I mean I know what it means, but I don't have like the deep knowledge to be able to like let's say advocate for these tools or like be able to work in this company. But that if they were open to giving me an opportunity to like learn, right? And then eventually start contributing, then I'll be open to doing that. So I jumped up with like having the first conversation with the DevRel manager, and it was really one of the best interviews I've ever had. Like he was so great. We had like a really good conversation about several things. And then I moved further to like other areas of the interview and then eventually joined the company. So the first month and a half in the company was just me focused on like learning Kubernetes and like cloud native. So I was assigned to the support team, right? And then I had like the engineering manager of the support team. Like we had like conversation like almost every day, to be honest, where I was sharing like, okay, hey, this is what I learned today. This is what's confusing me. Like, what do you think? Those kind of stuff. So yeah, it was through like an email from the head of DevRel. And one thing that really helped me to get into the space was the company giving me an opportunity to be able to like learn on the job, right? Gave me all the resources that I needed, assigned me to like somebody who was like really knowledgeable about Kubernetes for us to be doing like daily check-ins so that I get a sense of like where I was at and like what I needed to learn or improve on. And I mean from that point till now, they continue to like support me in like several ways and give me an opportunities to learn. And yeah, that's how I got into the field.
It's very interesting to learn that there are companies that are open to giving opportunities to their staff, or
Yes, to
yes, to
learn
learn while
employees, yeah.
working. So it's very interesting to know that there are still companies out there that are doing amazing for people to learn and then upskill and while being
Absolutely,
fair to
yeah.
work. Yeah, so that's interesting. Kudos to Ambassador Labs for that.
Yeah, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing, really. So, considering that you mentioned that you transitioned from a web development background, right,
Yeah.
to the cloud native domain, could you tell us about any challenges that you may have faced during your transitioning learning Kubernetes from web development background?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the thing with transitioning from like one tech field to another is that I mean, you're always asking yourself, hey, did you make the right decision? Are you like, should you have stayed in like web development? Because for you to have built a career in web development for some time, it means that you're knowledgeable about certain things. Like you're quite knowledgeable, right? So going into a different field is like you starting all over again, pretty much. Of
Yeah,
course it's not exactly like someone who just comes into tech for the first time, because you have some like background knowledge of how things work, but then it's like being a beginner all over again. And if you're not careful, that can be very overwhelming, right? Because you always be in the constant place of saying, hey, should I have stayed back, should I have not stayed back, like you're dealing with imposter syndrome and all of that. But I feel like I know, and I know that a lot of people always have these issues of wanting to transition, or rather being scared to transition from like one tech field to another, right? Because they feel like, oh, I've invested so much time into this, why do I need to leave now? It will almost be like starting over again and all of that. But then I feel like it's really one of the blessings of tech, right? Because if you've been in a certain tech field before, and you want to transition to another one, it would be a lot easier than someone who is just starting from scratch, because you already
Yeah,
know
that's
some
true.
of, exactly, you already know some of the you already know how to like Google, how to like find the things you need to find. You might even already know people that are already in that field, so you can reach out to them to say, hey, can you bring me on board? Can you not bring me on board and stuff like that? But I feel like the challenging things for me were, I mean, Kubernetes is very, is a very,
Complex, right?
yeah, it's very like complicated to learn. I remember that I would be like, hey, I know about pods today and I'm excited about pods. And then tomorrow and I realized that, oh, hey, I actually also need to know about services. And then from services, like, oh, you need to know about networking to be able, so it was like a never ending street of things that I needed to know. So when you're like feeling happy with yourself that, okay, hey, you now know this, you now realize that, no, you still have like a really long way to go. So that was like one of the things I struggled with, because it was really a lot. Like there were so many pieces involved that I had to understand to be able to get like the full picture. And it was, I mean, my, of course my team was supportive. I had somebody, I was lucky enough to have somebody who I could speak with every day or every other day whenever I had issues. And I also had like some friends in the community like Obina, that was like helping me to understand certain things that I struggled with. So I think that's something that would really help, like having a good support system, being willing and being open to like be a beginner again. Fine, it might be scary and all that, but then it's also really interesting because you get to have that beginner mindset. You get to like dive into like a whole new field where you can like explore and learn other things. Yeah, so I feel like to rephrase or answer the question, it would be that the fear of thinking that I made the wrong decision, imposter syndrome, because at this point I no longer know as much as I used to in my previous field, and then also having to like learn so many things because I wanted to like upskill as quickly as possible. Those were some of the things that I struggled with. However, I do think it was like one of the best decisions that I made to transition from like web development to cloud native. I mean that's where the future is, right? Like everybody is
Yeah,
like moving to the cloud. So being in this space now means that 5, 6 years from now, when a lot more people will start continue to, because it's like a continuous process, right? But then there would most likely be that point where everybody's on the cloud. So the fact that I'm here now means that when that time comes, I'll be like a lot more better. I'll be like in a better,
yeah,
like knowledgeable space. So yes, it's quite exciting to be honest.
yeah. So when that time comes, you'll be the expert in the field
Exactly.
already.
That's
Yeah,
that's how it works.
that's so interesting. So on my next question, I would like to know are there resources or communities that helped you during your transitioning? I know you've mentioned Obina being somebody that helped you and then being paired to someone at your company, your
hmm
current company that helped you through. But are there specific resources or communities that you would recommend to people who would be reading your story? Yeah.
Yes. So there is this company called Code Cloud.
Yeah.
They share, like they teach Kubernetes and like cloud native. Honestly, I feel like they're probably one of the best out there. Like I used them when I was trying to prepare for the CCAD certification as certified Kubernetes application developer, and they're so like inclined, like they're so like the way they explain stuff is really educative, like they really break things down. So that was really helpful for me. And I think the other thing was like the community on Twitter, right? So when I made this transition, I made a post saying, hey, I've now transitioned to like cloud native, and I'm like looking to connect with people that can help, or maybe people should share resources. And people were really willing to do that. People were like sharing their resources like in the tweets. People like opted to even schedule a call with me. So having conversations with those people, knowing that I had like someone to reach out to when I needed help, was very helpful. And then also the Kubernetes community as well, because I tried to dive into contributing. of course I wasn't very knowledgeable at the time. So I focused mostly on like the documentation bit. I couldn't contribute code or anything. So it was really, they were very welcoming too, right? Like even when you were like a first time contributor to the project, you could see people like sharing, okay, hey, this is how you need to do it, this is all of the resources you need, this is like the steps you need to take. When I joined like the Slack Kubernetes community, even like the cloud native community as well, all of those things just joined to like help. So I think that the cloud native community is very welcoming to like beginners, very welcoming to people who are making the transition. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to say, hey, okay, I'm in cloud native and let's see how this goes, as opposed to communities or organizations that may not necessarily be as welcoming to beginners. I think the cloud native community is very different in regards to that.
Yeah, I can attest to that because lately when I started learning about cloud native tools, that was last year. I think it's the community has been really welcoming. There's opportunity for first timers to
Yeah.
get in and get involved. Yeah. So I'd also like to know what education or experiences are required of someone who wants to mm, work or learn is a role because this is women in cloud native kind of thing,
Yeah.
um, as a developer advocate in the cloud native industry. I
Yeah.
feel it's quite different. Developer advocacy has um, being a developer advocate for a web focused company is quite different from being a
Mm-hmm.
developer advocate for a cloud native tooling company. So,
Yeah.
what resources or experience, not resources, skills and experience, do someone need to have to learn a role as a developer advocate?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. Like when you are a developer advocate in the web field, is a lot different from when you're a developer advocate in the cloud native field, right? So you need to skill up yourself in like the technologies. So if you're already a developer advocate in another field, right? It means that you have the knowledge or like the skills required to be a developer advocate. And then let's use web development for instance. It means that, oh, in addition to those skills of being a developer advocate, you also understand the web, right? So if you're transitioning to cloud native, it means that, oh, you still have those um developer advocacy skills, but the only difference now is that you don't have the knowledge of cloud native, right? So I feel like in that scenario, what you really need to focus on is on upskilling yourself technologically, right? Like understanding Kubernetes, understanding the cloud native workflow, the landscape, like pretty much trying to understand like what your company is focused on, right? And then how, like the skills you need to know to be able to understand them, right? So for instance, my company has like two products, which is one is centered around like an ingress control and API gateway, while the other one is focused on like Kubernetes development. So I knew that I needed to upskill myself in these two sectors of like cloud native. I mean, like we know cloud native is very broad. If you look at the CNCF landscape, you see that there are so many tools that exist. And I'm sure even as we're talking right now, there's probably one other company trying to build another
That's
another
true.
cloud native tool or something. So it's impossible to know every single thing. So my advice would be to try to like um find out what you need to know for the field that you'll be focusing in. Every company is focused on several areas of of cloud native, right? Or maybe more specific ones. So just find out what is your company focused on. What do I need to know to be able to like properly advocate about this company's tools, to be able to like talk with customers about it, to be able to speak with the developer community about it, and then focus on that. Once you have that covered, then you can now start like more general and more broad things in the cloud native ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to be impactful to your company, right? Because that's what's paying your your salary, right? And then once you've reached that point where you feel like you have enough information, enough knowledge to be able to do your work effectively, then you can now start like taking a step into other general cloud native things, right? So let's say my company is more focused on like API gateways and Kubernetes development, and I have a sense of that now. I can now say, hey, I want to learn Prometheus, which is more centered around monitoring. It has absolutely nothing to do with my company, but personally, that's what I want to learn because, again, I would need to have conversations with people and they might mention Prometheus. And I'm like, if I don't know anything about it, that's not so great. But if I have a sense of what it means, I can contribute to the conversation. Then then that's helpful, right? So that's what I would recommend.
All right, thank you very much for those tips. Now, the stats from KubeCon Europe, which just happened a few months ago, showed that only 7% of women attended the event in person, and you were part of the 7% of women who attended the event at EU. Now, I I would like to know what opinions do you think, or what do you think women need to do to get involved or be seen in the cloud native industry?
Yeah, I think it is just like a general thing and not necessarily it's not necessarily very specific to like cloud native, right? We all know that in the tech industry in general, we don't have as many women as men in tech, right? And that then now breaks down into several other tech industries like web development, Android development, cloud native development. And I feel like that's also again based on like the number of people involved in these industries or how these industries are being perceived, right? So, for instance, in even though there are not still a lot of women in like tech, right? You see that we have a lot more women in like in web development compared to let's say cloud native, and that's because there was a time when web development was like the thing everybody knew about it, and like cloud native is also still like up and coming, right? So it would take a while for people to also now divert into this ecosystem as well. So I think a general thing would just be like, okay, hey, how can we bring in more women into tech? And when they come into tech, they can now decide, hey, I want to do it in cloud native, or I want to do it in web development, or all of those things. Because if there are still not as much women in tech in general, then you can't really like improve or like increase the number of women in like specifically in the cloud native industry. And then another thing I would say is that oftentimes people think of like Kubernetes and like cloud native as like very complicated and very complex, and honestly they are, to be honest. But in truth, every other thing in the world is hard and complex, right? So it means that if you could actually learn how to be a technical writer or learn how to do web development or learn anything that you are very knowledgeable about today, it means that you can also learn about cloud native, right? If you could, because the way I think about it, I usually say this stuff where if you are so knowledgeable about web development today, right? And then look at cloud native and you're like, ah, no, this thing is really hard. Just try to take a step back and remember that there was one day when you didn't know anything about web development and you thought it was hard too, but then today you know about it. So everything oftentimes seems hard when you are not doing it or you've not given yourself the time to like try it or process it or whatever. But if you give yourself that opportunity to actually try, you realize that yes, it's probably hard, but you are capable of understanding, you're capable of learning, and you're capable of like scaling through regardless of how difficult or complex the technology is perceived. And yeah, if more people think about it that way, then we begin to have, I mean, not just women, but then also people, men as well, like pivot or like maybe want to make the switch. And yeah, I think that's what I would say. Like we need to, of course, also talk about our experiences, right? Like what your women in cloud native are doing, like spotlighting women, making other women see that hey, they're actually women in this field doing great, trying to build their careers. Seeing other women do would also serve as a motivating factor to bring more women into the cloud native field.
Yeah, thank you very much. I that is the core reason why Women in Cloud Native was
Yeah.
built or was in the first place. Because personally, I remember the last year when I began learning about cloud native tools, DevOps tools to be precise. I could I rarely saw women on my timeline on Twitter talked about cloud native or
Yeah, I don't know if it's your internet, but I can't hear you anymore. And I just checked mine, and mine is looking good. Can you hear me now?
yeah, I can. Sorry, I think my network was disconnected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like it.
Yeah, so like I was saying, when I started learning about DevOps, I could actually find a fellow woman like me talked about or who is
Mm-hmm.
learning DevOps on the STEM career path. So I really do understand that we need communities of women to encourage other women to get into the field. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And lastly, do you have any general tips or advice you'd give to women who wants to transition into cloud native, or who are already in the cloud native space but want to excel in their career?
Yeah, I think one thing I oftentimes say is like putting yourself out there, right? Like letting people know what you're doing. Um because I think it comes with like lots of like opportunities and benefits, right? It's like if I wasn't talking about me being in cloud native or talking about the things that I was doing, chances are I probably wouldn't have known that I was in cloud native or reach out to me about this, like having this conversation today. So I definitely encourage people to like put themselves out there, write that technical article, create that video content, talk about what you're doing on like Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever social media platform you're using. Because the thing with doing this is that people begin to know you as someone who is inside that field or working in that field. So if opportunities come up, they can remember you and say, hey, let me reach out to Roseline. She's into like Kubernetes or DevOps. She's going to be able to help me solve this problem, or she'll be a great fit to give this talk in like a really cool place. I'll probably pay you to speak there. So I always recommend that people try to like be vocal about what you're doing. Fine, maybe you think you're not very knowledgeable, but it could be as simple as like asking a question like, hey, you understand how to do this thing? I've been struggling with this or that. And then people now know that, oh, hey, this person is in this particular field. And that your question could actually be helping people, because maybe there's someone else out there in the world who is struggling with that same thing, but didn't have the boldness to like come out and ask about it. And seeing your question there could give them the answer or give them the boldness to also try it themselves. So yeah, that's what I would say. Try to put yourself out there.
Thank you so much, Edidiong. I really do enjoy talking to you, and I know that this series was very impactful, and that any woman who'd watch this video or read about your story would be impacted by your story. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This was really interesting. And like I said, love what you people are doing. Please keep up the amazing work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We hope to reconnect with you again some other day. Yeah. Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
cool. Have
Yeah.